goodness, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the E to Me podcast. This is Alicia. Y'all, I am so happy to be here with Kimberly Parker. If you guys didn't know, Kimberly was on the podcast a while ago. Take a listen to the episode. It was episode 151. The title of that actual episode was Liberate Your Mind, Unpacking Black Mental Health. And we had such an amazing conversation then. And I have to say, once everything started happening with the election and everything, I was like, who can soothe our souls and kind of bring us to like some type of sense of like peace and calm? And I was like, Kimberly, I've got to call her. I got to not call her, but like hit her up and be like, please, can you come back to the podcast? So I am so grateful that you are here. We had actually scheduled some time before the to talk like a little bit right after the election, but this was divine timing because we are seeing so many things going on right now. So Kimberly, thank you so much for being here back on the podcast. Thank you.
Absolutely, Alicia. I'm totally honored to be here. I appreciate you for keeping me in mind, especially for a topic that is so incredibly relevant and also very sensitive in so many ways. So I
Yeah.
just appreciate and feel very honored that you would have me back to speak on this topic for sure.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
it was so overwhelming for me at the time when I reached out to you because it was just like we were inundated with so much stuff that was going on, from Trump being shot and all the it was just like constantly something was happening on both ends, not just the Republican side but also with the
Yes.
Democratic side. So it was just like
Yes.
we were being inundated with so much information. And I don't know about how you were feeling at that time, but I know for me, I just, at some points, I felt like I was just spiraling, in ways. And
Absolutely.
so for you, like, what was that like, especially getting all that information at the time?
Mm-hmm.
How were you feeling at that time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when I take it back to I want to say November 5th, when I take it back, I remember the results were not out yet, but we were like pretty sure that Trump was going to win. Total transparency, like I cried myself to sleep that night and I
Yeah.
asked myself, how am I going to wake up and serve my clients tomorrow, because I know that they are also hurting. Not all of them, right? But I know that I work with many of folk from marginalized backgrounds and
Yeah.
who are directly impacted by this change and Trump being elected. And so I really was very unsure how I was going to face the day. And the next day, I mean, it was just real, like any
Yeah.
other day, right? In the sense of I'm going to be real and I'm going to show up as my most authentic self. And of course, I never want to take up too much space in the room as a therapist. And there were also some very real tears and some
Yeah.
very real moments with my clients where we just talked about the fear and the hurt and the pain and the betrayal
Mm.
of this all. And so that was in real time. And I just had to be very honest with them. It's like, I'm trying to deal with this in very real time. And
Yeah.
normally I don't share things with clients if I'm like in real time, but like we couldn't happen. I mean, help it. This was happening to us all. And so I just had to be very transparent and open. And there was initially for me, there was much despair because one, I couldn't understand how so many people could vote for somebody so hateful,
Right.
and for somebody who just genuinely doesn't even like people who look like them, whether they want to
Right.
admit it or not, or whether they know it or not. But so there was that betrayal aspect. And then just too, like, I mean, I think that was the biggest thing, is just feeling so betrayed by people that, whether I know them or not, whether I like them or love them or not, this huge sense of betrayal and then fear about what's to come. Because I remember what it felt like being a Black woman the last time Trump was elected, and being afraid of when I'm going to the grocery store and, is this a racist person? This
Right.
person, like this just hyper vigilance that when you're living in a world where people are given permission to show all of their isms and proudly, that was scary. And I didn't want to deal with that fear again, yet this is our reality.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for just being so transparent like that, because I feel like a lot of people, and I was saying this to someone the other day. I was like, especially in the workplace, like in your profession, at least where I work, and obviously, you being a therapist, sometimes you're kind of like trying to gauge, right? To see,
Exactly.
like, is it safe for me to share how I feel?
Hmm.
Obviously, once you have that conversation and you see that you can, it's like, okay, I can kind of like share, how I think and feel. But for people that, I don't know, even with like clients that you've worked with, like their workspaces, have they said that that's been an issue, like coming back to work, like that next day or even now, like how is it really tense? Like what is that like for them being in those spaces?
Absolutely, for sure. So that's such a good question, Alicia. And so going without going like too deep into maybe what they said word for word, but just kind of giving
Right.
that general piece is like, shoot, I'm trying to mind my P's and Q's right now as far as how I respond because I was totally going to say something else, but it's like, oh shoot, I don't know who I can trust, and then
Mm,
even because I think there's this idea that like if you're a person of color, you would never vote for Trump. Like at least, I mean, the statistics
right.
tell us different, though, right? We
Right.
know that 8%. I'll leave
Right.
that at that. But and then even more thinking about other brown and black folks and black men, but just there's kind of this misconception of like, oh, you're a person of color, there's no way you voted for Trump, but then we're finding out that that's not true. The statistics
Right.
don't show that. And so you really don't know what I'm going to just blatantly call it, what is a sheep in wolf's clothing?
Yes.
Essentially, what is a sheep in wolf's clothing? And I've even had stories shared with me from clients of like, this person said, oh, I'm so shocked about these results, and they're like, well, I voted for Trump. And so then they realize like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And that's happened to me too in the workplace, by the way. Like I'm a solopreneur now, but before, I remember sharing with, at the time, someone that I considered to be a really, really good friend. Oh my gosh, I don't know how you can be a therapist and a Trump supporter. And she indeed was a Trump supporter. And so, did I have to eat my words? No, because I'm standing on business with what I think about that. And
Right.
I'm pretty vocal about that on my page and will continue to do so on my social media about where I stand as it relates to the values and the morals of my business and myself as a human. But absolutely, there have been moments like that. And I think that is by far one of the most painful moments that my clients are bringing to me is like, oh my gosh, like I love this person as a friend and as a
Mm,
coworker and as a family member. And I can't reconcile how they voted against their best interests and my best interests. And it's a very complex pain point that my
right.
clients are dealing with. And to be honest with you, that I'm dealing with. And so
Mm,
normally I'm a couple chapters ahead where I can kind of help them I can see down the road and see how we can get there. But this is like real time that we're both
right.
dealing with this, and still something I'm trying to figure out when you figure out that this person holds values and morals that are totally out of alignment. But I do still love you and I do still like you and I like
Mhm.
working with you. But how do I reconcile that?
Right. And I think that's thank you, because I think a lot of people are
Absolutely.
in that position, particularly people who have close friends and family that
Yes.
you found out after that they were, in alignment with Trump and his values, and it's just like, wait a minute, do I know you?
Exactly.
And it's like, how do you pick yourself up in that time, or in that moment, to like still move forward or maybe part ways? Like how do people, like, I don't know if that's even like something we can answer, but it's something to think about. It's like, how do you move forward now, knowing maybe even like your spouse or something is in
Absolutely.
alignment with this
Exactly.
type of these values? It's wild.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of those things where I feel like I'm not, back when I was a supervisee and I was getting, I was working under the supervision of someone. I remember my supervisor telling me, you just have to be like a chapter ahead of your clients. And so like I've always kind of gone by that. Okay, I think I've done
Right.
this and I could do, but with this, again, it's happening to us all in real time that I'm not a chapter ahead. I can be
Yeah.
totally vulnerable and transparent. And I've shared that with my clients. And so that's something, Alicia, that I'm very much so still trying to figure out because I can say, for example, I was raised a Christian. That's how I was brought up.
Right.
And as I continue to develop further and further as an individual, I realize that there are some things about Christianity that are not in alignment with who I am as a
Mm,
person.
right.
And that has been a very, very hard discovery for me, especially because when I hear the word Christianity these days, I think about Christian nationalists and
Yes.
Trump supporters, to be quite honest with you. And I'm nothing of the sort. And so I say all that to say, knowing that I was brought up Christian and different things that I was taught that I don't agree with, knowing that I still have family members who are very much so still dedicated to some of those beliefs, and I still love them.
Yeah. Wow.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I still love
Yeah.
them. And so I realize that it's not that easy. And I had a client tell me, "Thank you, Kim, for just pointing out how difficult this is because." In maybe a different world, I'd be like, I'm done with you. We're totally
Yeah.
done. You're out of my life. But what do you do when you've already fallen in love with this person, whether it's your friend or your family member or
Yeah.
a coworker? And you want to see if you can still keep them in your life, but you just don't know. You just don't know. I just don't know, in total
Yeah.
transparency, because you believe things that are so hurtful and you don't even know it. And maybe you do know it and I just didn't know that so then there's this piece about, were you always like this and you knew you were like this, but you weren't just showing me that side of you? Or are you truly lacking self awareness, that
Mm,
you don't see your over assimilation, or you don't see that your beliefs are not, for example, Christ like or,
right.
or loving? Do you just not know? I don't know if it's willful. I don't know if it's something that they're willing to do and I just didn't
Yeah.
want to see it or couldn't see it. I'm not sure.
And as you were saying that, I was just thinking, for me, I'm feeling at this time like a lot of
Yeah,
it is now it's like a internal, like me just working on myself. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like
absolutely.
if we're constantly like, you Trump supporters, you're the reason, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, I can't keep, because it's almost like perpetuating the hate that's actually,
Exactly.
being put in
Exactly.
front of us, right?
Exactly.
So I don't know if that's something maybe to that's what I've been trying to do. Like just really just okay, Alicia,
Absolutely.
what do we need to do to just kind of like work on ourselves here and be shine that light and love. I don't know if
Yeah.
that'll do anything for people that or have like that sense of hate in their heart. And I'm not saying everyone that's a Trump supporter. So please, I want to be clear about that too. Not that everyone has hate, but from what we've seen with this particular person,
Yes.
it's not been kind at all, right?
Exactly.
And so I want to be on the opposite end of that,
Exactly.
you know?
Totally, Alicia. And maybe that's why we get along so well, Alicia, because honestly, I'm right there with you on this
Yeah.
piece of being of being like self-reflective. And then because I do believe that I will reap what I sow, I don't want to sow hate.
Yeah.
Now don't get me wrong, every now and again, I'm gonna give it to you like totally 100%. Every now and again,
Yeah.
I do have a little bit of negative thoughts that come up regarding
Right.
this. I do, and I may have a couple F words, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I feel pretty strongly about it. And I think back to right after the election. I think, yeah, it was actually the day right we found out the results. I had a meeting with a group. I was in a business program for 10 weeks, and my business advisor, she started the meeting off just kind of checking in with everybody. And one of the things she said is like, Kim, they want you to be caught up in your emotions so that you forget your mission and your vision and your purpose and what you're trying to
Mhm.
do. And
Yes.
that stuck with me because I don't want anybody to interrupt my mission or my vision of serving marginalized populations and bringing more healing for people who look like us. Nobody can stand in the way of that. Nobody.
Yeah.
So, yes, I had to feel my feelings, all of the feelings, the sadness, the disappointment, the rage, the anger, all of it. And I still have some of those emotions. Absolutely. This just happened yesterday, even though, like we talked about, Alicia, it feels like it's been a whole year and it's only January 20,
Right.
right? But I still feel all of those feelings, and I am determined for my mission of healing to persist. And I can only persist and keep going if I'm right within myself. And so,
Yeah.
what I've determined is that Revenge or vengeance is not mine. It is not
Mm.
mine. Instead, I rather focus my attention on still doing the work. I might still feel rage and anger at times because I think we have those emotions for a reason and I don't want to
Yeah.
dismiss them. And I know I do a lot better when I can reconcile those feelings within myself, acknowledge them, accept them for why they're showing up in my life, and then translate that into power, to
Yes.
empowerment to continue this work of bringing healing to our communities because we deserve it and we need it. And I don't want to get off task with that because I stay too much in the place of anger and hurt and
Yeah.
disappointment.
That is so beautiful. And I feel like a lot of people need to hear that because so many people are just like enraged and almost, and I shouldn't say, well, it is what it is. Like I think of some people with that rage, it's easy to kind of live in it. It's
Yeah.
easy, and it's like to do the opposite. It can be difficult because I think also too we've been conditioned in some ways in this country to go towards that negative way of
Yeah.
thinking and
Yeah.
being,
Yes.
despite which side you're on. You know what I'm saying? And it's like how can we, as regardless if you're Republican, Independent, Democrat, whatever race you are, how can we come towards some type of positive thought process where we're trying to build? I don't know if you saw the Saturday Night Live
Hmm.
special
Hmm.
with Dave Chappelle. Did you see that?
No, I saw his monologue, but that's the only snippet. I need to
Okay.
go back and watch it fully though. Hmm.
But that's basically what it was, the monologue. The
Yeah,
show is hilarious. I mean, it's Saturday Night Live, so you know
exactly.
they're just being silly and goofy to some degree. But that monologue, it stuck with me because I was just like, regardless of whatever, Trump,
Yes,
people are counting on you, you
exactly.
know? And
Exactly.
it's like how do we come together knowing that, okay, this is the guy who's leading us, and how do we all rally together as a country to make sure that this actual leadership works in all our favor? Like, how does that even happen, right? I don't know, right?
Yeah. That's so hard. I think that's such a hard question because he's such a loose cannon. And I think he's such a loose cannon, like for real. And I think that's what scares people the most. And so you
Right.
remind me of that when you posed that question, Alicia, of just the great amount of fear of the unknown.
Mm,
I think there's so much. I think it's been hard for folks to think about what are those next steps because there's so much fear surrounding the unknown because of the loose cannon piece.
right.
And so it's hard. It's hard because like division is not going to get us anywhere. But then if you don't
Right.
have that person who wants to play with you, because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to is like,
Yeah.
I mean, the hate is real. The hate is real, and if you have like, and I know I'm not telling you anything that's new to you by any means, Alicia, but it's like that hate is so real, and so it's like knowing that, how do we come together knowing
Mm,
that, and so when I think about that, then I say to myself, okay, this is where it brings me to focus on what's within my power and control. I can't help that this person behaves this way. I can't help that this person hates me for things that I can't change about myself or don't want to change about myself because I love my blackness, I love my womanness, etc., etc. Then it's like, what can I focus on that's in my control? And I think part of that is still doing the work while acknowledging that I'm a human that's going to fall short sometimes. And
yes.
then the biggest piece of all is being in community
Mm,
with like-minded people where I can feel safe and I
yeah.
can be myself and I can be loved and we can work towards their greater good together because I can't control them. I mean, I can't control anybody, right? But
Right.
but knowing if I can just take my control and be around people who really care about the collective and the
Yeah.
well-being of all of us, not just those ones in that circle, right?
Right.
Then that I think is where the togetherness aspect comes for me because I just don't think that everybody wants to be together. I don't think, and I think these orders, these executive orders and things, this mass deportation, I think that is like the proof in the pudding that being unified is not really the goal here. Making America white again, I believe is the goal.
Right. Right. And It was so funny. I was watching someone today on
Mhm.
social media, and
Yeah.
they were basically saying something to that degree where it's like, well, not so much that, but just talking about the whole idea around creating all these inflammatory type of instances, right? Because the hope is that we will be so divided and so angry and we'll just lash out
Exactly.
that it's like
Exactly.
we're just spiraling. And then they can just continue to do whatever they want behind the scenes. And we are sitting here like fighting and, you know, pulling each other apart and not realizing we could actually come together with that energy and really create and make America great.
Exactly. Exactly.
But, you know, here we are, right?
Exactly. I'll have to go back and watch that too, Alicia, because I think that's such a great point that yeah, if we're over here spiraling and doing this, and that's why I don't want to get caught up in the spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about that spiral of rage or anger or just being out of sorts with my emotions, I'm reminded of, I want to say they call her the rage doctor, Dr. Jennifer Mullen, the author of Decolonizing Therapy. And she has a couple of courses on rage and
Mm,
relationship with rage. And so I've been thinking about that piece a lot of like to remember that no emotion is like bad. There's just some that are more unpleasant than others, and it's all about how we respond with whatever emotion that is. And so
right.
I think by not getting caught up in that spiral, it's like we can still feel it, but we don't have to get so off task with it to the point that we forget what it is that we're trying to push forward as helping professionals, as just humans. It doesn't
Right,
have to be
right.
a helping professional, but just a human, who is about the collective and collective healing and the collective moving forward.
Yeah, that is so beautiful.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
you know, that actual social media post that I was telling you
Yes.
about, it's a woman. She was talking about the Tuskegee Airmen uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
information that
Mhm.
they were attempting
Anchor.
to remove. She, then also at the same time she was talking about, okay, this here. She's like, we know that this is something that's inflammatory. And it's something that's going to continue, like, and we're going to continue to see this where they're going to, keep trying to turn up the heat more and more and more.
Yes.
And it was just like, oh my gosh, because initially when I heard that, when they were trying to remove that
Mhm.
from the actual curriculum of was it
Yes.
the Air Force, right
Yes.
here
Yes. 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 Mhm.
in the United States,
Yes.
of course you get angry initially, right?
Absolutely.
And then when
Absolutely.
she flipped it like that, she said,
Mhm.
remember,
Mhm.
this is another inflammatory thing that they're just trying to pile up because they want us to get
Exactly.
angry and enraged. And that's the excuse. Like, "Oh, see, that's how they are. That's how they are. So now we have to put more law and order in place because they don't know how to act."
Exactly. Exactly. You are and Alicia, this topic I feel like is so, I mean, again, so complex because there's a huge piece of me that likes to fight back against this piece of
Yeah.
yes, I know that this is what they're expecting, and so there's a huge part of me that wants to fight against that. And then there's another piece of me that just like I saw it on a really really beautiful documentary, A Recipe for Change. I think it's produced by Oprah, and there's black women from all different types of walks of life who are talking about the black woman experience. And someone says, we're called the angry black woman, but like you don't hear anybody say angry Asian woman or angry white woman. And
Right.
so it makes me frustrated that like we should be able to be angry, and we should not, you don't have to call us aggressive or black bees because we're angry.
Right.
So like there's a part of me that wants to push up against that. And you're so right. It's like, isn't that how we have had to live most of our lives, is preparing to not be who they think that we are, or what they try to at least portray that we are? Is like, no, I have to stay 4 steps ahead of you because I know
Yeah.
that this is what you think, and I know these are the stereotypes. And so I've always got to be ahead of the game when it's like, I like to be a real person sometimes who can just be angry and not be called names because of it. But I also get that point of, again, not getting so far off task or not getting so deep into the anger. Well, it distracts us and it puts us in this place of, like you said, this is why they need managing, because they don't know how to act.
Right. And that it just really just hit me when she said that. I was
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because like you said, I have always been in this position where I'm just like so frustrated that I
Yes,
can't express my emotions. It's like,
exactly.
why do I have to be this angry black woman? I'm just upset. I'm just upset. And I mean, it's unfortunate
Yes,
in so many ways that we
yes,
can express ourselves in in that way in most situations,
exactly.
but given the circumstances,
Yeah,
it might be a thing where we have to kind of like dial back and and be strategic, still find ways, like you say, go to community, and kind of like find some type of like solace in that, but still,
absolutely.
like you said, it's so complex because there's really no like a way to kind of
Exactly.
tie it up in a bow and like present it like that's it, done. That's how we do it.
Exact and I'm so glad you brought that up, Alicia, because that's been something I've been marinating on a lot, to be honest
Hmm.
with you. There's certain folks that I look up to on social media as it relates to this world of decolonizing therapy. And
Yeah.
I notice that I don't always present like I'm not and present by maybe I'll say it like this. I don't always show up like they do. And so sometimes I question, am I doing it wrong? Because
Mm.
like maybe I should be a little bit more like this or a little bit more like that, especially because these are individuals that I admire. But I've recently come to the conclusion that like we all have our own personalities and our own ways of dealing with things, and that we can still get the mission accomplished in our own way,
Right.
utilizing our own gifts and talents and our own personalities, because there's enough room at the mountaintop. There's enough room in this mission for us all to just be ourselves. And so I think that brings me to back to what you mentioned of like, there really isn't a checklist of like, how can I advocate? How can I show up? How can I respond to all that's going on in the world? Because again, we're all human. We're all different. We're all dealing with this the best way that we can in real
Right.
time.
Thank you so much for that. And as you were saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, this to me is like almost like a revelation based off what you just said, because you were like questioning, am I doing this right based off of what I've been told?
Mm-hmm.
That's something I've struggled with a lot in my life. Just,
Yeah.
am I presenting myself as a Black American in the way that I'm supposed to,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever that
Exactly.
means in whatever setting that I'm in. And it's like, I think you have the ability to do that, but then at the same time, be your authentic self. And I think that's what's so important,
Exactly.
especially in these times. It's like showing that we're not this monolith,
Exactly. No.
you know?
Absolutely. And you're so right about that. And I think that's why we can show up in all different types of ways, and that none of it's wrong. It's just different, and it shows just how diverse we are, even if we might look alike or whatever it may be, that there are still so many differences, but those differences make us so beautiful in that way
Yeah.
as well. And so I appreciate you for sharing that piece too, because sometimes yeah, I'm like, am I doing this right? Do I have this? There's like the self doubt that pops up, but it's like there really is no manual, I think. And even if
Hmm.
somebody is writing a book about it, I mean, there really is no manual of any, because I don't know. There's a huge part of me, Alicia, that wants to say we've never been through something like this before. But
Right.
I was quickly reminded that is not accurate. In a lot of ways, we're back in time with a lot
Yeah.
of what we're dealing with right now. And so maybe that's also the thing that gives me hope, is like somebody along the lines has been through something. And a
Mm.
lot of times in more, I don't want to do a comparison type of thing, because I don't want to dismiss what we're dealing with right now.
Right.
But when I think about what some of our ancestors went through, and thinking about my late grandmother, who she was going to be 90 years old last year, all of the things that she went through. And I mean, they had black and white what do you call that, water fountains in her day.
Yeah.
They had that. And she, knowing that she was skin tones lighter than me, she was also still too dark. And
Mm.
so, you know what I mean? And so think
Right.
about that
Right.
colorism aspect. And so I want to honor that piece, that yes, we have differences between back then and here, but then in a lot of ways we're also, it's almost like I don't want to say a replication, but something of that. It's still not that different, I guess, is the way that I would see
Exactly.
it. Mhm.
Exactly. And it's funny, I'm going back to that video I was telling you about before, with the influencer that was talking about, just not allowing these things to kind of like cause us to go into this spiral where it's like, oh, there, yep. showing you exactly why we needed this whole Law and
Mhm.
Order piece. Somehow in that actual video, she also talked about reaching out to elders if they're still around
Yes, I love that. I love that.
and talking to them about their stories and their experiences, because it does then allow you to see those similarities and realize, oh, you made it. You made it through this,
Exactly,
you
exactly,
know?
yeah. That's and so it's encouraging. I think it's very encouraging in that way, and I did a lot of reflection on Dr. Martin Luther King Day last Monday, just
Yeah.
thinking about all that he went through. I mean, he died for
Mm.
the cause when we
Yeah.
really think about it, you know, and so really allowing that, I think you're so right, to be like a guiding light and a guiding post, and to know like if they can make it through, so can we. And
Yeah.
that's not, I think as a therapist, sometimes I try to remember like some things just suck. And so
Yeah.
with my clients, I like to just keep it real, like this does suck, and I also can't do anything about it, and that's hard for me, because again, I somewhere I've read in a book or somewhere I've used my intuition where I can help my client along with this. Really, it's them doing the work, and I'm just a mirror anyhow. But like this is not one of those things. And so I think it's a matter of acknowledging like that this sucks, and
Yeah.
that this makes us upset, and it's all justified. And what do I, now that I've done that, when I'm ready, how do I move forward? Only when I'm ready.
Yes.
And I don't have to put any silver lining on it. I can just accept it again for this thing that sucks, and that this is what we're experiencing. I also think I heard someone say before that like gratitude and anxiety can't coexist together. Now I don't know if I necessarily totally
Okay.
agree with that 100%, because I'm like, I think you can be, but I guess if you're thinking about what if I'm thinking about both of them at the same time, maybe at least the anxiety is a little bit less, even if it doesn't disappear.
Right.
And so I think if I, in going back to this piece about talking to those who came before us, I think we can hold that piece of like gratitude and encouragement, and then maybe, just maybe, that makes us feel a little bit less anxious about
Mhm.
all of the things that are going away, knowing that it doesn't totally take it away, but maybe, I always say, if I can just get a little bit closer, a little bit closer to whatever it is, less anxious, less depressed, less this, then
Mm.
I can live a little bit better through that. And like
Yes.
that can do the trick in some type of way.
I love that. And I think that's helpful for so many people because like I said earlier, I think because a lot of people are just enraged and
Yeah,
frustrated and
yeah,
depressed and all the feels right now. Like you said, if I can just be a little bit better today, like okay, yesterday was that, but guess what? Today I'm feeling a little bit lighter.
exactly,
I love that. And just like you said too, when I'm ready, right? Not when
exactly.
everybody in my household's ready or everybody, like
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. No one gets to push you along in that journey. And, this makes me think of, Alicia, something I was talking about with my sister, is that I can't afford to drown in this climate. You
Mm.
know, just like I can't afford to drown in my trauma, I can't afford to drown in grief. And I talk about this with my clients. I can't afford to drown in this climate because I got too much to do. And I just
Mm.
know that's not good for my mental either. And so I'm almost calling it like this strategic dissociation too, to an extent.
I love that.
Right, right,
I
right.
love that.
Absolutely. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm still feeling my feelings. On Saturday, it was just one thing that happened. And I realized the grief of the week just all came to me after that one
Mhm.
thing that happened, right? And so I still find ways to let it out. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
I can't drown in it. I can swim with it. I'll feel it. I'll come up for air. I'll feel it. I'll come for air. But I just can't afford to drown in it. One, because again, I'm trying to protect my mental and my
Mhm.
emotional. Two, I've got a job to do, like just quite literally a job to do, and need to be well for my job. And then three, again, nothing stops the mission. Nothing stops the vision. Nothing will stop my purpose. Certainly not hate. Absolutely not.
Yeah. This is you. Like
Absolutely.
that right there, I think we can end on that because it's just so beautiful because it's like nothing like what did you say? I can't afford to drown
I
in,
can't. I can't. I
you know,
can't.
that's beautiful. And I think that's a very important message for anyone hopefully that's listening to this. Hopefully this is resonating with you. If not, listen, it's resonating with me. This was for me. I'm just going to keep
Likewise.
it
Likewise. Seriously, it's
seriously.
very healing.
It's very healing. It's like, I can't afford to. And I hope that people that are listening to this as well, like, you cannot afford to lose yourself in all of this because you have a mission, you have a purpose. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, that's really been my, like, the thing that's been keeping me is like I just can't afford to drown in it, Alicia. I can't. And
Yeah.
maybe if I have a final thought, I think back to something we talked about is, I've been black my whole life. I've been a girl, a woman my whole life. I've been in a larger body my whole life, and so I'm not new to the fat phobia or the racism or the misogyny. Like, this is
Yeah.
just, it's not it's heightened. Don't get me wrong. It's
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah, yeah.
heightened because of what we're going through and how the climate is just so, oh gosh, it's so treacherous. So
Yeah.
I don't want to dismiss that by any means. And I just feel like, I've gotten so many mosquito bites throughout my life that
Yeah.
I'm not new to it, I'm true to it, and I hate to say that. I hate to
Yeah.
normalize it, right? But maybe
Right.
that's my way of coping, and I'm willing to
Right.
accept that. But I think having that's why I don't drown, is because I'm not new to it. I know
Yeah.
you're not new to it,
Right.
and that is why I just continue to go from day to day and to persevere.
Yeah. Kimberly, thank you so.
Absolutely, Alicia.
Like, I knew I was like, okay, I have to like just please come back and just this
Yeah.
was beautiful.
I
I think
appreciate you. I really do, Alicia. And I think this was, we could have done it, yes, at an earlier date, but it's like,
right.
I'm going to marinate on this a little bit more because this was
Yeah.
so healing for me, just you giving this platform and this space. I When I signed on, I'm thinking, okay, we're doing podcasts, like, and I know it was a heavy topic for sure, but I
Yeah.
was just excited to be here with you. And
Right.
as I sit here in this moment, I'm thinking about how you gave me a space and a place to share something that's really been heavy on my heart. And so
Yeah.
I thank you so much for that.
Oh, you are welcome. And thank you. Like, you have no idea. I was like, it's just been escalating. And I was like, we have to find ways to just find, bits, but this is like a huge chunk to me of healing
Yes,
at
likewise.
such a crucial time. Seriously.
Likewise, Alicia. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you can let everyone know where they can find you on social media, websites, just take it away.
Absolutely, for sure. Thank you. So my handle on Instagram is Kimberly Parker underscore LPC. I'm also under Kimberly Parker on LinkedIn. And then for Facebook, Revive, the number two, Thrive, WC. Well, that's actually my website. So that's where you can find me on my website. But maybe a quick way to find me is if you go to my website, Revive, the number two, Thrive, WC.com. At the bottom, you'll see all the icons for my social media and can reach me there or reach out through the website.
Awesome. And you know what? I'll just put your website on
Thank you.
in the
Thank
show notes,
you. Thank
and then
you.
everyone can just find you from
That's
there.
perfect. That's perfect, Alicia. I'm so grateful, and I'd love to hear, yeah, any thoughts or feedback. I'm totally open for it, and grateful for anybody who finds me.
I love that. Oh my gosh. This was so healing for me, and I hope it was for y'all. Thank you so much again, Kimberly. Thank you.
Absolutely, Alicia. Thank you.
You are welcome. And thank y'all for listening to this week's episode of the Eat Me podcast. I will see y'all next week. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Absolutely. This was so great for me, Alicia. I really appreciate you so much. Like, I found myself honestly feeling choked up because I really didn't know just how badly I needed this space and this place. And you're such a safe person and just so easy to talk to and talk. Like, I just really appreciate you and your boldness and even being able to speak on this topic, because I know a lot of folks kind of shy away from even
Yeah.
speaking on such a sensitive topic. So I'm very grateful.
Oh, you are welcome.
Absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.